My name is Kristen Hansel. I'm the Director of Creative Engagement here at the Auditorium Theater, and we are thrilled to be partnering once again with the Dance History Project for our History in Motion series of conversations that they've been doing around Chicago. I'm sure most of you, I hope most of you know that we have Giordano Dance Chicago back on our stage this upcoming Saturday, June 10th. If you don't have your tickets yet, there are tickets available. I think, looking at the faces in this room, I think most people are probably set to go there. But we're thrilled to have them here tonight for a great conversation on the history of the company, its connection with Chicago, and so forth. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Jeanette Kutcher and Giordano Dance Chicago. Let's give them a warm welcome.
Hi, thank you, Kristen, and thanks to everyone at the Auditorium Theater for hosting us and collaborating with us, as well as the team at Giordano Dance Chicago. We're really happy to be back here for another History in Motion series. My name is Jeanette Kutcher. I'm the Executive Director of the Chicago Dance History Project, which is a not-for-profit research organization. We exist mainly because we would like to see even more widely accessible information about Chicago dance and its rich past. So we're working really hard to investigate and uncover a lot of those histories, and we'll eventually present them online in a digital archive. Until then, until it's built and up and running, we do like to share content online via social media, so please, follow us on all the usual channels there. What we're doing mostly is conducting one-on-one oral history interviews and recording them, as well as facilitating discussions like this one, which I like to think of as group research projects. So please feel free to ask your own questions in a bit, but I get to go first. Our History in Motion series is designed to bring some historical context to current performance events happening throughout the city. So this one, we're here to learn a lot more about Giordano Dance Chicago in preparation for Saturday's performance here at the Auditorium. So thank you to our three guests here with me today. I'm not going to go in order. We have Nan Giordano, second generation artistic director of the company founded by her father, the famous Gus Giordano. To my left, we have Joshua Blake Carter, longtime dancer with the company, choreographer as well, and director of Giordano's second company. And on the far end, Michael McStraw, executive director. Thank you all for being here. All three of these individuals have extensive careers and impressive credentials, and I'm going to encourage you to go to the Giordano website and learn more and check out your programs on Saturday for sure. But in the interest of time, and because we can hear directly from them today, I think I'd like to start maybe by way of a little bit more of an introduction to the three of you. If you could just explain briefly how you came to be involved in the company, and then maybe a little bit more detail about your role within it. Nan, do you want to start, since that happened at birth for you?
Sure, yeah. I was born into it. And at a very young age, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So I grew up in a situation where my mother was running the whole operations of all the different entities of our organization, and my father was obviously the master teacher around the world, running, involved in the school and running a dance company, doing all the grant writing, everything. They did all of the components. So I learned at a young age, not only trained by my father, I learned how to run a business. That's what, our whole home, our dining room table, our kitchen was filled with always press releases and notes everywhere and things to do. So I really love both sides of it and feel very lucky to have had such, I was trained by the best and feel very excited. So I loved my dance career, and I love the business side just as much. So I am ever so happy to be still long time dancing many years ago. I do not cry at all about that I'm not on the stage. My days are long over, but I still am completely surrounded by the vibrance. So that's kind of my story.
Me. So I've been with the organization since September of 2010, having come to Chicago in 1984 as a professional dancer, had managed other organizations, but it was the time of President Reagan, and a lot of the funding for the arts had gone away, and so I found myself with 2 small children and temping, and ended up moving into pharmaceuticals, where I lived for 17 years doing marketing and operations. And when the job with Giordano Dance Chicago came up, again in September of 2010, I said I would be a fool not to take this opportunity, because such opportunities to work with iconic organizations do not come along very often. And so I joined the organization in 2010. But I have a really cool story. Back when I first started dancing, I went to Allegheny College in Meadville, Pennsylvania. And in 1974, that journey began. At the end of my freshman year, I saw the Orchesis group perform, and I said, I want to do that. So although I got a degree in geology, I spent most of my time dancing. And it was in 1976, remember that's pre-internet, in Western Pennsylvania, and there was not much access to dance. And when Gus's book, The Anthology of American Jazz Dance, landed on my instructor's table, my teammates and I would run and open that book and imitate the pictures to be able to do choreography. So when I applied for this position, I said to Nan, while I've known you and your dad for all these years while in Chicago, I also have this secret from 1976 in Meadville, Pennsylvania. It's how I came to the organization.
My story is a little more recent. What do we always say? That I'm young, they're young, I'm just younger. Yes, that's young, what we say. Yes.
They're a lot younger.
I started dancing when I was 14 years old, and thankfully had a teacher who came in as a substitute jazz teacher. Her name was Emily Ewell, and she had been a Giordano 2 member, probably in the late 90s, and she encouraged me a lot through my training in high school, and as I got to looking at post-high school training programs, she suggested the University of Arizona, that at the time had a very actually a completely, the jazz faculty was all former Giordano Dance Chicago company members. So I auditioned, I got in there. My freshman year, first piece we do, Gruesome Suite, which we're doing on our program this weekend. Never got to dance it, but now I get to, so it's okay. It's all okay. But it was what kind of jolted me into this concert dance arena. I knew it existed. I thankfully had a great high school teacher who made us learn dance history, learn about Gus Giordano, learn about Luigi, Matt Maddox, all of these great jazz artists. So anyway, getting off topic here, in 2006 I was awarded, actually the story goes, someone else was awarded a scholarship to the summer program and couldn't go. And I asked our teacher, could I take the scholarship? And she said, sure. And I came with black hair, with a red stripe in it, wore a red unitard, and I think she looked at me one time the whole week, the whole 2 weeks I was there, and that was it. Change your look was basically the message. 2008, someone else was awarded a scholarship once again. Couldn't go. I said, can I take the scholarship? And I showed up and I had shaved my head, I was wearing all black, and she was like, who are you? And I was like, I was here 2 years ago, and refreshed her memory. And so from then on, I trained that summer for 2 months with the company, went on that year to finish my senior year, and went into Giordano 2 for a season. And after that, because timing is everything, there was a position open in the company, and now I've been in the company for 7 seasons and been directing Giordano 2 for 4. So.
And I should just add one thing. How old were you? 19, I think. 19,
Yeah,
20.
19.
And Joshua came to me at our original school in Evanston and said, I have a piece of choreography. Would you look at it? And I said, absolutely. And I had never seen such a young dancer that had such a gift. And I told him at that time, you truly have a gift. He is now, this weekend, one of his pieces will be premiering on the auditorium stage, and he truly is a very gifted choreographer. So I just wanted to add that.
So already we've heard about the variety and the breadth of ways, even just the three of you have encountered Gus and the company and the technique itself. When he began the company, obviously it was, with students here in Chicago, but now, people encounter it in Georgia and Arizona State and Pennsylvania, and I'm wondering how that dissemination of information and the technique over the years has shaped the makeup of the company itself.
Well, firstly, I would like to mention that we have an original company member here in the audience, Mort Kessler, standing there, original company, yes. And my father was a visionary, and he was one to enact on his visions and his dreams. And he dedicated his life to the elevation of jazz dance. So even in the very first days of the company, they would go on tour in the station wagons, kind of the same thing, as Hubbard's roots. They're celebrating 40 years, and they started in that station wagon. And so it's just getting out there, going to any and every town, in any environment, from the best of the best, like the auditorium stage, to something that was very undesirable. And I was taught at a very young age to make any and every situation great. So we can go into a box and it could be our best show ever. It doesn't always have to be the perfect auditorium stage, although we love the perfect auditorium stage. And my dad was a master teacher, so the company has been to
27
countries.
States.
27 countries.
47 states, over 1,300 cities.
So that was really the roots of my dad's getting out there and starting the Giordano Technique and teaching in all these different venues and teaching abroad internationally. As a young child, I got to travel all over the world, lived in Paris while he taught in the summer. So it's really what he was obviously the foundation of all of the amazing opportunities that we have now.
I'd like to add to that. So in addition to those things that Nan said, Gus had this quality that in the world of dance he was looked upon as a rock star, but he was absolutely an everyman. And the stories I hear all the time about his ability to walk into a master class with 200, 250 people in there and literally touch and or talk to everybody within that 90-minute span was one of the attributes that he possessed that infuses the organization now that has been seminal to our 54 years, because he had that presence that enabled people to learn from him and then take that message on. So I guess evangelical with lowercase e, right? That he did have this quality that allowed people to get excited about what he had to offer, to learn from him, and then to take it, much like with Josh and his faculty being all prior folks from the company. And so that personal storytelling and that personal passing of information, which is part and parcel of what dance is all about, but it was even magnified more with Gus.
I only have to add one thing, which was, for us, a younger generation going out into the world and teaching, you cannot go one place without someone who knew Gus Giordano, who said, I took classes when I was a kid, or I remember taking my students. You're meeting all of these people who've been to these conventions, been to these things. I was working with Missouri Contemporary Ballet, and their rehearsal director remembers meeting Nan when she was about 13, getting off the Winnebago in Florida at one of these traveling things that they would do. They would all pile in the van or pile in the RV together, and so it's very cool as coming up into this family, learning how really connected the dance world is to just this one man, this one family. It's very unique. So.
Okay, I'd like to talk about the Giordano Technique a little bit, and I kind of have a three-part question here, up for grabs, whoever wants to talk about it. What are the distinctive elements of the technique?
I think I'll start with that. power, soul is everything, and the soul in our technique comes from the pelvis and it radiates throughout the limbs. Regalness, so we have, if you put your finger under your chin and your here, we always refer to this as an open neck. It's something we highlight a lot in any and every Giordano class. And just the combining the technical precision from ballet and the very organic movement from within. And those are really the trademarks. And very, very strong and grounded, which is the key. Josh, do you want to, without splitting your pants? And we had a full run today, so can you do a Giordano second?
Look at this.
Is our parallel base, and then the grounded plie. There you go. It's low.
That was a nice stretch.
That was good. Your knees are saying, oh, boy.
And thinking about the program on Saturday, are there certain things within the choreography that we might look for to say like, oh yeah, that's distinctly Giordano?
I would say absolutely. Firstly, the piece by Frank Chavez was done in 1993 on our company. First time Frank creating. Understand that Frank danced with Roni Koresh, who will also have a piece on the evening on Saturday. They wore the Giordano original jazz shoes together, and they danced in a jazz company. It's just the threads, the veins go so far, and I think that's one thing we've capitalized on. So, not to get off the subject, yes, there are definite pieces. The Roni Koresh piece is all about power and soul and just incredible strength and wide stances and a lot of plie. Frank is the classic jazz, very musical, very intricate rhythms, and more the classical jazz style, even though it was done in the early 90s. And then you have Liz Imperials' piece, which is, again, a vein from my dad. Came home one day many years ago, said, I have a woman I want her to create on our company. This is her third piece. It's very, very contemporary, not the contemporary word contemporary. Contemporary in our world and my world means now. My father used the contemporary word 40-some years ago. That meant that it was something that was now. I know the word has shifted and changed, but to me, it means now. And our dancers as well, it means now. But we won't get into the contemporary versus jazz world right now.
Maybe later.
I'd like to add to that. So some of the qualities that Nan talked about, the groundedness, the regalness, the sense of power and strength, those are attributes that you see no matter which choreographer has brought what style to the table. Something else, though, that is a hallmark of the organization is a sense of extraordinary ensemble work without sacrificing the individuality. So I think this is one of the things that kind of slyly comes along with being a jazz dancer in our company, is that you are encouraged to be an individual. Yes, you have to have a good sense of staying all together and doing all the same things, but they remain people on stage. So they have that certain something that kind of emanates from them and welcomes the audience in. And so you can have 10 people doing exactly the same thing and you never lose sight that that's Joshua and that's Zach and that's Megan because of that sense. And that comes from our heritage and what Gus had perpetuated and encouraged within his dancers. I was doing some research on him for an article I had written, and one of the things I learned in talking to some of the older dancers was that he used to encourage people to go out and take class with others. And there was a time when people were very protective of their dancers and said, oh, no, you're mine, you don't go out. But he would say, go out, learn something, and then bring it back. And so that sensibility is still very prominent within our organization.
And I think, too, the main thing, too, is energy. He was all about positive energy. You will not just see that our dancers are beautiful dancers and very technically, very high technical level, but you will feel them. And to me, to us, to our organization, we base a lot of what we do on energy, we create energy. And doesn't our world need more of incredible energy? And that's really what we focus on. Whether you like or don't like something, you will absolutely feel the energy. There's something for everybody.
Joshua, you have a new work premiering Saturday, right? Can you talk a bit about how you may or may not, I guess, draw on your training and your experience with the Giordano Technique for your choreography?
Yes. So I think, you know, as a choreographer, when I walk into a room to see the dancers for the first time, the movement vocabulary is developed based on what also they can give back to me, right? So I think in working with our dancers that we're trained the same, you know, that vocabulary is largely dictated by our training, by that groundedness, the regalness, but also the soul, because you know, this piece that is premiering would not have its life if the dancers did not give their soul in it, because of just the content of what it's about. But I definitely think that, I mean, this is my second work for the company, the first one as well, very grounded, very based in that modern jazz realm, but still forward thinking, still drawing on the things like even Michael said about us going out there and learning other things, because that is something you know you need. I'll never forget watching Project Runway at some point years ago, and they were like, this guy was like, well, it looks like something down the Gucci runway from last fall. Well, I don't watch the runway shows. Well, you need to, right? You need to know what else is out there, because otherwise you look like you're copying, or you know, you want to know what you like, what you don't like, what works, what doesn't work. So I think, you know, I'm influenced largely by the people that have come in to work with us too, and as Nan mentioned, you know, a lot of those people have those jazz ties. So, you know, I think there are definitely elements of Giordano and the Giordano technique that will be prevalent in this piece.
With you know, such an established history and aesthetic and style, what do you look for when commissioning new work or bringing someone in to work with the company at this point?
Versatility. Jazz dance has a lot of different, I will use the word veins again, and so I want our show to have the great diversity that I was taught that jazz dance is. From the classic, you know, to the current day. Josh's piece is really more, it's very contemporary, meaning it's something very now, and everything in between. So, versatility is essential. I do not want everything to look like the same. I think that is crucial to our organization. And I want it to be something that's stimulating for our dancers. We give them a voice in people they would like to work with, because if they're excited and they're bringing voices to the table, wow, you know, we want to create energy. So if they're already screaming, it's like a game. They try to get secrets out of us all the time. Today included, all 16 of them were in our tiny little office space, wanting to know secrets. And one of those secrets is, who are we working with? And then they hear, and then they're screaming and jumping and running, and you know, so it already sets a stone of excitement. So different voices in dance, and yeah.
So we have a very strong mission statement to promote, preserve, protect, expand the art form of American jazz dance. And when you filter all of your decisions through a strong mission and subsequently a vision statement and a value statement, that it makes that selection a little bit easier. Dance, as everyone knows, can be, it's on this continuum, right? It can be something that is pure schlock at one end and intellectually so dense at the other end that you can't get inside of it. And we're happily right smack dab in the middle. And we occupy that space very knowingly and gladly, because we want, as we've said, want our audience to go on a journey with us, to be excited by what they see. They may not like everything, but sit tight, you'll like the next one if you don't like this one, right? And so when you have that sensibility and that understanding of where you are and what you do, it makes the selection of choreographers and people you want to work with very exciting. I like to think of our rep. We have 160 works in our rep. Josh is number 160. I think of it as a big sack. And you throw in another piece. You don't have a ballroom piece, you grab a ballroom piece. You don't have a hip-hop piece, you grab that and you put it in there. And it keeps that sack always moving and shaping. And it makes for a very cool source of work from which to pull. So, and Gus said something, I'm paraphrasing now, something to the effect of, jazz dance is an art form that's always in search of something new. And we honor that sensibility and that philosophy in all that we select.
I love that Gus keeps getting mentioned and reincarnated, and you know, the sensibilities that you're talking about, Michael. Nan, I'm curious, in your position now leading the company, what are some of the tenets that of your dad, or like, are there certain phrases that come to mind, or what has lasted the most with you that you apply to your leadership?
I think being a unified leader, not a dictator. A dictator is not a good leader, and someone that really embraces the dancers as individuals, like Michael said, and to hear their voices, and to it's just, I love being around our staff and our dancers. I just can't express how much it's a joy to go to work. And that's because of the creating of energy. And I love to walk into the worst situation possible. We've had many. Look in my eyes. We're going to make this great. Because I just can see my father doing that so many times, you know, going from the Grand Opera House in Kiel, Germany, to a school literally in their school hallway, and that's where we're doing our show, in a hallway with lights on a like tile kind of concrete floor. That's like the worst possible, but making it with 2 poles, like in the middle of the stage, kind of. And we had a lot of shows there. So it's just, I learned probably the thing that rings in me the most is to make any and every situation the greatest it can be, and don't complain, because I couldn't complain. I'm not a complainer. Because I was working for my father. I mean, you know, that is not, I looked up to him so much. He was my mentor. So we don't have room for anyone complaining on our team. Like, it's a unified team, I would say. It's very unique, I feel.
Was there a distinct moment or point at which you realized that you were a part of the family business, or that you were, or was that just always a given?
It was kind of always given. I was really the only one out of 4 siblings that had any interest for it. And but there was a moment, and I think we'll have this on profile, when my father actually gave me a key, this ornate key, and wrote a letter to me about how he was giving me the key to his kingdom. And it was a key I think the Pope gave to one of the, it was a copy of the key. He was so excited about this key. And it was he that wanted to take out Gus in our name. It's bigger than him, bigger than me, bigger than anything. It's certainly not about me. I don't care if anyone even knows who I am. That doesn't drive me. It's just making it all very touchable to people. I should mention, too, that my son is here. He carries Giordano in his middle name, and he's not a dancer at all. Keenan Giordano, Casey, is right here. And I see my father in my son so often, and I just, the legacy lives on in so many different ways, but it's just so much bigger than me. It's something, we're trying to create now something that's going to last long after I'm gone. That's part of the legacy.
The business guy wants to talk about succession planning. So all of these things that we've been talking about, of the passing of information from Gus to Nan and to subsequent generations, we take very seriously as we select dancers to join our organization. Not only do they have to be good technicians and have professional experience and have a college degree, but they also have to be good people, because our dancers are our primary ambassadors. With that mix of really cool people, you sometimes find those who have extra qualities who make them well suited for the business of dance. So with Josh retiring on Saturday evening as his last performance with the main company, he will take a small breather, and then he will be joining us in the office as our manager of operations. Yes. So he'll be the second person who has come from the ranks of performer and then come internally on the business side, the other person being Cesar Salinas, who's our manager of artistic programs. And so we have this next generation of folks whom we are grooming to take on the business of the organization. That's the direction we go, because if you're going to have an organization that extends for another 50 years and gets to a 100-year mark, you have to be planning for those who will come next. So we do that through our dancers, and then those exceptional people who can also come in on the administrative side.
Can I say something? Of course. The other thing, and it's kind of going back to you asking Nan, is there something of her father that she can hear that resonates? Something that resonates with me about just the organization, but especially in Nan is family. They take care of you. And I'll never forget one morning waking up, and I could not stop crying out of one eye, and I'm like on my way to work, and I'm like, can't even drive, and I'm calling Nan, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. She's like, calm down. She's like, I'll give you my credit card number over the phone. I will pay for you to go to the doctor. Just go to the doctor and be seen. And I had heard all of these stories from my mentors from college about, oh, well, Gus and Peg always took care of us. Always, if we didn't have a place to sleep, we were at their house. Or if we needed a car, they would let us borrow the car. And if we didn't have money, they would put us to work around the studio. And it's still true today that they make sure that we are taken care of, because as much as we invest our lives in dance, they invest in us as well. And it's, you get out what you put in. And I think the reason that we have been so successful and so thriving is that we all put in the same amount to be a working family,
I love hearing about the philosophies and the principles and the traditions that have been maintained for the past 54 years, but I was also thinking, no company of any kind can sustain itself for that long without changing and evolving. And I'm wondering if you could maybe pinpoint a few of the significant changes that the company has gone through over the past few years.
I'll take this one. So well before my time, when Nan went from performer into assistant artistic director, she recognized that while the company had been run like a family business, it was run like a family business. It was ma and pa. And so she was one of the driving forces to make us a 501c3, to establish boards of directors, to begin doing grant writing. And that I don't know how old we were. We were well, 25, 30 years old before that change, well, maybe 25 years before that change really started to take effect. So that was one sizable thing that's happened. We have another celebrity, another Giordano celebrity in the audience, and that's Ben Hodge. He was my predecessor as executive director for a number of years. 14 years Ben had the position. And so when I came on board in 2010, with a strong background in strategic development, we began a period of growth. And that means changing processes, increasing the size of the board, growing the budget, doing all those things that further take us along that continuum to sustainability. It is not easy work, let me tell you. Anybody who's in a not-for-profit organization knows how difficult this work can be. But when you have an artistic product and a mission statement that are so strong, it makes the business work that much easier. So, those are good milestones. But it began with Nan insisting that we need to let go of some of these older family ways of doing things and turn this into a true 501c3.
And we, I won't say anything much, but we do have an opportunity in our hands at the moment that will completely redefine, shape our organization. It's a huge, huge challenge, but we are going for it. And it's you have to jump off the cliff in order to excel. And what a better time. We have everything in line, and isn't it always about money in the not-for-profit world? So we're embarking on some new, very exciting journey.
Maybe related, but on a more historical aspect of that, Giordano is just so rooted in Chicago. I was curious about any civic institutions or organizations that have helped sustain the company or supported your work, or how does the company relate to the city as a whole?
Well, I should say that Giordano Dance Chicago was the first company before any company that carries Chicago in their name. We were the forerunners in that because we were in Evanston, and we were touring all over the world, and who knows Evanston when you're in Germany, but Chicago they'll know. So my dad was, he was very proud of his city, but we were in Evanston, so we were off of the bloodline. We weren't on the pulse. When we moved into the city, we're now in the South Loop on the edge of Chinatown. All these things, it was like we had arrived, we have been around for how many years, Michael? 49th year. We moved in our 49th year, and the rug was pulled out from under us, and in a very quick way. And adversity creates strength, and we chose to rise above it and excel. But from my father's honorings, from Gus Giordano Day in the state of Illinois, April 25th, to being recognized by Senior Citizen of the Year, Mayor Daley, my son was this big when he got that award, to numerous recognitions and awards from our state and our city. So that has been a support of him as a man, and now the company is being recognized and celebrated really in a different league, really since our relocation into the city. Evanston, we were just so close, but far out of the vein. I guess you would say. I've used that word a lot. And it's, anyway. Path, yes. Vein would not be appropriate in that.
So we are one of the original resident companies of the Harris Theater, going in our 14th year, I guess it is. And we are thrilled that we have established this relationship with the Auditorium Theater. Saturday evening will be our third visit to the stage as part of the Made in Chicago Dance Series, and we've been engaged for 2018, June, so it's our fourth time. So it comes back to relationships with the major institutions in the area. You have a strong artistic presence, you connect, you bring success to those events, and then you establish yourselves. So that's how we have been present in the city of Chicago. Going back to Gus, though, he was up and down the lakeshore decades ago doing cotillion dances and teaching in schools. And so Gus the man, the company, all have had a presence educationally from an outreach point of view, a performance point of view, and those things kind of accumulate over the decades and establishes you as, we're just part of the Chicago fabric.
And we do a huge program in 3 CPS schools, our Jazz Dance Science and Health. We teach 300 classes in 2 months. We give the schools these programs. We integrate dance with science and health, the muscular anatomy, skeletal, respiratory system. We have a very strong program that the schools do not pay a dime for. So we are getting out into our Chicago community. Our outreach is very important to us, and we do not job it out. Our dancers do this program. We actually formulate our schedule so that our dancers can be an integral part of the program. So we're not just, putting an ad in, do you want to be a part of the program? So we can really train them. And, that's another way of getting intertwined into the city.
I have one more question. Yes, and then I'd like to hear yours, if that's so. Start thinking now. This is your warning. Michael, you mentioned a little earlier the company mission, and the word preserve is in there. I'm wondering if you can each take a minute just to maybe illustrate one example within your different roles in the organization, how you work on the preservation front of the company, whether it's a daily activity or in a specific kind of project. How does preserve relate to what you do in the company?
Well, I would say for me, I'm a traditionalist. I was taught a very classic dancer look. In our dance world now, that's very, very changing. We keep a very regimented look to our dancers. And that is something that has kind of waned off to the side, but it's something inbred in me. And then I teach it to our dancers, and then they go out and go into the young dancers, and they're teaching it. And I think just the foundation of American jazz dance, that's preserving, not just preserving and continuing to elevate, as was my father's legacy.
I think as a dancer, you have some responsibility in preserving the choreography and the intent, the original intent, because steps can always be retaught, especially now that we have video, but intent and the emotional content. So I think that part of it has been a part of my responsibility as a dancer. Outside of that, I have done a lot of work with our video archives over the last 7 years in reorganizing and, making sure, for a while it was VHS to DVD. Now it's been, making sure the DVDs all work. Now it's all on Vimeo, So as our technology changes, I've also been a part of that because, again, reteaching dance now is so much easier than it was when it was all dance notation.
We have the Giordano Technique, proprietary technique, foundational jazz technique, that several years ago we began the very long process of codifying and protecting that information. You certainly can't copyright or trademark human movement, but you copyright the names and the information, the training guides and things like that. So with our workshop that begins next week, we'll be launching the 4th of the 5 levels of this technique with the advanced. And we have gone through pro bono help from a variety of attorneys. I've got a fly friend here. We have gone through the process of protecting the service marks, the copyrights. We're now a registered trademark on the Nan Giordano certification program to be able to teach the different levels of the Giordano technique to professional dance educators. So that's a big project that we undertook, and it's going to take us 5 years to get it done, but
we're in our 4th year.
4th year. Damn fly.
Okay, your turn. Yeah, Ginger.
So I have a question. I have just a brief story to retell because I have a long history with Nan. We went to grammar school together. She did all of my grammar school pictures. And we both danced as children, and I took classes. We lived in Wilmette. I took classes later when I was in high school, also as a child, and then later in high school at the studio. And I wonder if any of you would tell us about the building and how the studio came to be in that building at Evanston and what the building was like and what all was in it. Because the building was, I just remember, and the large studio space as being
Sure. My father came from New York City. He was on Broadway and had one child. And at the same time that he had a small infant, was offered a job through the film council. And I look at Ben because Ben was involved for many years with films. And that was what brought him to 614 Davis. And at one point, there was a mikveh campaign in office. There was a bowling alley upstairs. So in the wood floor, you actually, which we had a wood floor, no Marleys for many years, all my dance career, you would see the lanes in the floor. And he just had this opportunity for this building, which we literally rented for 25 years. And it was kind of a gift that just fell in his lap. The Film Council had some involvement in the building, and it was truly a treasure that was a mecca for people from all over the world to come and study. You know, and famous people that went to Northwestern and have carried on. I mean, I'll just give one example, and she took classes there, Daryl Hannah, you know, when she went to Northwestern. She grew up in Chicago. Her mother now, Sue Wexler-Mazzoni, is a very good friend of ours on our board and competed in our Dancing with the Stars, and Daryl came to our events in the last 2 years. I'm just telling you that the whole world is so full circle, and we value those relationships that began so long ago. Josh's teacher, he said she was a G2. I actually started teaching her when she was 7 years old in Owensboro, Kentucky.
Where I know now.
Yes, her teacher is coming here to the workshop in this room on next Thursday. We will be doing a surprise honoring because she has been supporting our organization for 35 years. She trained at our original school. So again, we value our relationships that we've been built, and 614 Davis is now, guess what it is now? It is a finance house, very high-end, high finance. They moved their whole operation from the city into Evanston. But it was like a gold mine finding this man when the building was not so pleasant to operate. And he was a gift sent from above. And so now if you go to 614 Davis, he's done a beautiful job on rehabbing. It's just a different place. My son and I were up there, you know, a couple weeks ago, and I don't cry because my soul and my memories are with me. I carry them everywhere. So that's a place. It's not about a place. It's about how you live and how you carry. That's what I think. You're going to get me emotional. I won't cry, don't worry. My son is like, oh my God, Mom.
But
don't
you
worry.
kept the sign, right? I thought I saw the address sign in the archives. Yeah.
From the trans.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So Ginger, did that kind of answer your question, or?
I just wanted to see if you paint a picture for people a little bit, which I feel like you did. It was really a unique space.
It was, and you know, the stairs that I used to like run as fast as I could up and down. Now, I would be a little slower on those stairs. But anyway, it was a building made of, you could feel the energy was radiating out of it, and it was a gem for Evanston and the world. Kate?
I was just going to say that the waiting room for the main studio was just plastered with black and white photographs that we just loved. I mean, that was like history right there. Like you would go there and you just, I mean, every surface had photographs from all over a lot of the company when they were, you know, much younger, and it was a really, really, really cool space.
Kate is just now been with us a year, almost, and Kate actually moved to Chicago many years ago when she was late teen, early 18. She moved to study with my father at the original school. and has a whole history with my mom, my dad, the family, the company, and then all of a sudden she is on our team now on the administrative side. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just a question of fact. Do you ever hire dancers who haven't been sort of studying with you and kind of in a way come up through the ranks, or
Yeah, that's a good question. So we annually hold 2 auditions, one in New York City and one in Chicago, have about 100 people at each of those. What we look for are those, again, who have the training in ballet, modern, jazz, that they come from a reputable program, that they have a level of experience, and they possess those qualities, those human qualities that we look for. Turns out that many of the people we've hired over the years come from similar schools. So Point Park University in Pittsburgh, University of the Arts in Philadelphia, and then University of Arizona. Those 3 schools have traditionally trained their dancers equally in modern ballet and jazz, which sets them up for success in our program. Once in the company, most people come in, not all, but most people come in as a G2, which is an unpaid apprenticeship, and then they train and they get immersed in the Giordano way, and then they move up into our performing associates, which is a paid position, and then from there, if there's opportunity, they move up to the main company. It's a farm team system that works very well for us. This year, with Josh stepping away, and one of our other dancers, Rachel Berube, will be stepping down after 6 years with the organization. We've had this major shift up through the ranks, so we've promoted 7 of our dancers to various positions, and then we'll bring in new Giordano 2s into the lowest section of the company. So it's a system that works very well, but it also takes a number of years to percolate through. Somebody can be in the G2 spot for a couple of years before something opens up and they've proven themselves, and then we promote them. So it does take time. When we go to auditions, we say, let's set expectations, because it's very rare that people come in and just step into the company.
But we do have some new young ones coming in. That we have a graduate of Columbia. She had never, well, no, that's not true. She had studied with Zach. Okay, fine. One of our boys. But we have a young man coming in from the Joffrey School in New York. He knows nothing about the technique other than his studying, and he is going to be brand fresh. So it does happen, but Michael's point is we rarely ever hire someone off the street for a main company position. They come up through the ranks. We call it grooming. We have to groom them, not only for the stage, but for all of the social, they have a lot of social activities and social things we do.
I'm interested in the dissemination. I've learned a lot from you in the dissemination of the technique and all these university connections, which are very interesting. But more interesting to me is the touring schedule from the very beginning. And I think my question is simply, was there ever a time where your father thought we could leave Chicago, or should? Or did Chicago?
Never.
Never.
Chicago was his heart, absolutely. He loved to tour the world, and he did tour the world, and he loved to travel. My mom hated to travel and was always struggling if she had to go. I, on the other hand, loved to travel like my dad, but this was his place. He felt the connection instantly. He wanted his company to be in downtown Chicago. We are finally in downtown, but he bought a condo so he could have a Chicago address after many years. That's how much he wanted it, even though his school and everything else was in Evanston.
And with all the international travel and the breadth of travel, I think it's very interesting how you comment that this seems to be the space between Evanston and Chicago was nonetheless great.
Yeah. Isn't that fascinating? We were not anymore, but we were known better in, I'll just say, a city in Germany, because we've toured there many times, more than our own home at one point, more than Chicago. So that paradigm has changed now. But yeah, he was very proud of his city. St. Louis born. Rah, rah. Been St. Louis. Both my parents were St. Louis and went to the University of Missouri.
Any more burning questions? Yeah.
Can you talk about the legacy of community engagement, kind of the inception of the school outreach, and then maybe Josh, from a dancer's perspective, what it feels like to partake in those activities?
Sure.
Do you want to take that?
So, given our founders' predilection for teaching, outreach and education have been part of this organization all 54 years. The Jazz Dance Science and Health program that Nan talked about is just one of the things we do to, in an established programmatic way, to educate. That program is now, we just finished our 12th year with the Jazz Dance Science and Health. 3 public schools, roughly 300 kids, 400 kids in 300 classes each year. But we also have a project called the Giordano Choreography Project, where we send our dancers out to suburban high schools to choreograph. And those children, those students, are pulled together for a culminating project at Barrington High School once a year. They have access to the choreography that's been taught to them, and they use it in their orchestra groups or their annual showcases for a year. So that's something else we do relative to education. So our striving, our quest is the best word I can think of. Our quest to continually teach and educate is something that suffuses everything we do. You had a second part to the question that I've now forgotten.
I just wanted the dancer's perspective on
Gotcha.
teaching.
I'm done.
We have one actually additional part, the Jazz Dance Beat Then and Now, which is our school outreach performance. It's an educational, through the decades type of show that we do a lot of times when we go on longer international tours or something where we can engage with the communities. But closer to home in Woodstock, Illinois, there was a, now this fly wants to hang out with me, Michael. Yeah. You sent him my way. But there was this, there was a school there for students with disabilities, and they thought it actually might be overwhelming to send the entire company. So 3 of us went, and we modified the show for 3 people. So we're doing 10 people's job, but 3 of us were doing it. And I've never seen such fire come out of young people, because kids who have the ability to get up and move and dance, you know, they're able, you actually physically can see that, but to see it light up a person who cannot, you know, didn't even enter the room by themselves because they had someone with them, was truly magical. So I'd say that has been one of the most, you know, it's burned in my mind, that part of our community engagement. And the other thing I think that we haven't really mentioned is our involvement with Dance for Life. For 26 years, we were one of the founding companies of Dance for Life, which is, you know, now thankfully with HIV and AIDS being a manageable disease, really focusing on the Dancers Fund, which is, you know, this really awesome thing that exists for not only dancers, but anybody, Nan, Michael, you know, Kate in our office, you know, anybody who has medical needs in the dance community can access it. And what's been part of our mission since the beginning when they started to be there, even when we had there was a Palm Springs Dance for Life for a few years, all 4 of those, we've never missed one, because that part of us taking care of each other was always important, taking care of our own community.
That sounds like a great sentiment to end on. I want to thank you all so much for sharing with us, and thank you all for coming and participating. I can't wait to see the performance on Saturday. The Giordano team has put together a great mini exhibit that'll be on display in the lobby, so make sure you check that out, and we'll be around as well to document all of you. As another part of the Chicago Dance History Project. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.